And we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And welcome to this edition of the Tuesday telecast from The Joyful Path. And a joyful path this is. So we're going to be talking to someone who fits exactly what goes on in this channel, where we have lifted ourselves. Our life has let us down, or society has let us down, or our body has let us down, or our family. Something has happened and we have risen up, and we're now lifting others to the joyful path. And I can think of no one who has lifted himself more and is lifting others more than, oh my goodness, José Pereira. Please help me to welcome José to the platform. Let's get José into the house.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you for having me. Wonderful introduction.
Welcome, my friend. Let's get you started by asking what it is that you that has attracted you to LinkedIn for a message, and what is your main thing that you would first introduce yourself?
Well, yeah, it's a wonderful question because I was remembered the other day. I began my LinkedIn journey in May last year. So
Yeah.
really, I have 1 year and maybe 14 months that I begin in LinkedIn. And why I begin to do it? Because, well, many people maybe know me, maybe many people maybe don't know me. I'm a former oil and gas guy, did all my life in the oil and gas. But in 2017, as you know, I went through this hostage situation. I was called to a meeting in Caracas, and I became a international hostage. By the way, what you see in, there in the screen is the cover of my book, because that what you see in the silhouette, that is my silhouette, but what you see in there is the dungeon where we were put together. We were 6 guys, and we were thrown in that dungeon during years. We were there with all the political prisoners of Venezuela. So when I came back in October 2022, I was thinking what to do with my life. I didn't want to go back to the corporate world because I didn't fit there. And so I decided to think more what to do. And I began to work with the people that have been hostage, or family that have gone through hostage situations. So I begin to get more involved in that community, a kind of rare community, the hostage community. And that made me the connection that I was helping others. And that's why I decided to convert myself in a leadership and a resilience coach to help others in this. And to do that, I began to explore the social medias, and I found a perfect fit in LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a very professional platform. And to tell you the truth, for me, the growth in LinkedIn has been great because the connections, the networking, the people that have been knowing has been growing exponentially. It's something that it hasn't stopped. And for me, that my calling of talking about this, raising awareness about this situation, and telling my story as a testimony that things in life can happen, but you can overcome them, you can succeed them, and you can thrive after that, because everything is in your mind, and everything is connected to the way you decided to face things with the grace of God. Because this is another thing. I became a very Christian guy after all my situation, and today I'm very connected to my church. I do church service. So my life has gone in a way that I could have never imagined in the past. So the way I decided to put this together, not only with my coaching program, I decided also to begin to speak I have been speaking on this, and the final of the cycle is I wrote my book. So my book is kind of
Right.
the the closing of the whole cycle of my new life. So that's more or less my story.
Yeah, yeah. And in a nutshell, but there's so many details to it too, right? So you you're one of the what's known as the Citgo Six, and have you had a life before that. And that's nothing you ever expected. Life throws us things that aren't expected, right? And that's how we learn, that's how we grow. That's but still, what brought you to Venezuela before the incident of your being a political prisoner? What was your life like before that?
Well, that's a very good question because as I was telling you in the backstage, I have been talking extensively about my testimony, but I have never gone on the details of how we got caught in this situation. And there is a very high political component in our story because I'm Venezuelan born. I began working in the oil and gas in Venezuela that during years was one of the biggest company of the world. It was the fifth most largest oil and gas company of the world. And that is PDVSA. I was a PDVSA executive. I did all my career to the top of PDVSA. And when I came here to the U.S., to the Houston-based company, the Citgo Petroleum, I came as a knee, as an expat. So I was really uh, in my career path, and at the end of the career, I became the CEO of the company. So for my life before this situation was a wonderful life. I did a 35-year career on unstoppable, always growing. I had never had setbacks, and my career, to tell you the truth, was very successful. And when this situation happened to me, I was having my perfect life because I had everything. I had a car with a driver. I had a plane. Uh, uh,
Right.
uh, I have everything I needed. I took the phone and did whatever I did. And in one moment, I lost everything. So when I went to that trip to Venezuela and we were caught and accused to be American spies and had to have committed treason and all that charge that they put it as a sham trial, because the problem with this situation that is called the hostage diplomacy is they put you sham trials. By the way, yesterday there was a journalist that was convicted in Russia, and 3 weeks ago another one was convicted in Russia, and they put you 16 years, 20 years, 25 years. So there are bizarre charges. So that's what happened to me. I was convicted 30 years and a $2.5 million fine. So can you imagine that? So in a moment you lose everything, everything. When one moment you're here in the pinnacle, in few minutes you're here, uh, your life totally screwed up. That's why I decided to call my book From Hero to Villain, because I was kind of a hero, and in a
Yeah.
moment I became the worst of the villain. Because if you go back to the you Google the day we were detained, our detention was announced by the president of Venezuela in national TV, that 6 American spies were detained, were caught, and they were making treason, and they were corruption, and we were the worst of the villains. So for us, in a moment, we lost everything. I can tell you, Lydia, this is something that today I still don't know how we managed those moments, but for some reason of God, we did it. And
Mhm.
that is something that I'm still in the process of learning, this has been a growth path for me.
Yeah. Yeah. We grow with everything that happens. And it's kind of amazing, isn't it? What you got caught in, whether it felt big or life altering, was a story. And story is reality. Everybody's story is reality, and yet we're all connected. So you
Correct.
never know, when there's always consequences to everything we do, right? But sometimes we get caught in consequences of other people's actions and of other people's reactions and of other people's stories. And
Correct.
so all of a sudden, you were serving and you ended up in prison essentially for life. You ended up in prison, and this was a story. Did that story ever become reality for you?
Well, yes, because at some point when you are in that situation, the first thing that you do is deny what's happening to you. You say, this is not happening, this is a mistake, this is something that's going to be clarified. I really believe the first moment that there was a mistake. But like some days after, I begin to see what was going on, because you know what happened to us? Let me tell you. We were caught, we were put in the dungeon without no communication. And 2 days after, they sent us to the trial because they had to begin the trial. So they put us in an armored truck and sent us to the courtroom. And we were waiting in a place there to get passed to the court. And there was a handyman working, doing something in a wall. And the guy
Yeah.
had a paper in the back of his pant. And the guy saw us there. He didn't know who we were. And he said, "You want to read something?" And he gave us the newspaper. When I got the newspaper, there was one of the main newspapers of Venezuela that is called the Última Noticia, the last news. And when I opened the newspaper, I see in the breaking news, they said 6 American spies were caught, and they begin to say there all the charges that they were putting to us. So that was the first time I knew that we were in a very big political situation, because reading in the first page of that newspaper as a breaking news, we said, okay, now this is really serious. And when we went to the judge and we saw all the charges they were imposing to us, we begin to believe, okay, that is happening. This is reality. And then comes a process in your mind, because you can continue denying it, or you decided to say, okay, this is my new reality. Let's see how I'm going to handle this. And that's why we decided to do. We said, okay, this is our new reality. So when I went back to the jail, I began to think, okay, Jose, what you're going to do with your life? And I was in a solitary confinement. So when I came back, I was alone. I was alone with my thoughts, and my mind was all over the place. My first thought,
Wow.
I can see they were very, very bad. I was having really, really bad thoughts. I was thinking, if this is my reality, being accused of American spy in a communist country, I said, I'm going to stay forever. I'm going to die here in this prison. So I was really thinking that it was better to take my life. I began to have this type of thoughts. But for some reason of God, it came the other thoughts. They were, no, no, Jose, you have a family, you have your wife that is waiting you have your kids, so then comes the other shift, when you really begin to think, okay, no, I have to overcome this, because I have people waiting for me. And I'm not going to say that was immediately, but you begin to have those thoughts. And as the case begin to evolve, at some point my wife went to visit me. She took the risk and she went to visit me. I received a surprise visit One day, she came from here to the U.S. There was no direct flight with Venezuela because the country was under sanctions. So she had to do, I don't know, she went through Mexico and from Mexico, Panama, and Colombia, and came by the road. The long story short is that she appeared there, and I have like a 3 hour visit of her. And when she told me about all the things they were doing and working with the American government to get a release and all the things they were doing, there comes another thing that now you have hope. Now I'm having hope. And when you begin to have that hope, because now I have my wife telling me that I remember when I was there and they said, Mr. Pereira, dress up that you have a visit. And I was not expecting nobody. And when I went to the room, they have a room where they do the visit. They call that the fishbowl because it was a room with a lot of uh, windows that they could see you and had mics and cameras. Everything was recorded. Okay, so I told my wife, "Hey, when I saw her, I got like in shock, and I told her, be aware what you say because they record everything." And she said, "No, I'm aware." And we began to talk. We began to talk, and it was like a 3 hour talk. When she went for me, was a game changer. Now I'm having hope, and I can tell you, I can continue how the thing began to evolve. At some point, we were put the six together. Now the six are together. Now we begin to cheer each other because the another thing that for me was kind of magical because we were six guys. I never talk about this. We were not friends. We were not friends. Only one of the guys worked with me. The others, four guys, they were colleagues, but we were not friends. And when we were put together, we began to talk about the story of each other, who we were, what was our family. It was a surprise that we discovered that we were six guys with long-term marriage, more than 30 years each. We had successful careers and we had wonderful families. So we had these three things in common. The six. And for us was like a wow. How long have you been married? 31 years. I had 32. I had 38. So it was like a wow. So and that really make a great connection because now we're connected because we have common things. We have families, we have kids, we have travels, we have memories, and that's what we begin to do. We begin to cheer each other, and we begin to have positive thoughts. And that really, really was a game changer. And the other thing that I always talk is that we create, as I call, a survivor plan. That, by the way, based on that survivor plan, was that I created my coaching program. So this has been kind of evolution for me. But again, Lydia, I'm a man that really believes that always the hand of God was under all that situation.
Wow. So there's a lot in the narrative from the live stream saying about hope is a game changer. And there's also, see, you had two things that I see happen, from my experience. There comes a point at which, and my audience has perhaps heard me say this before, but where what's happening, whatever the story is, whether it's someone else's story or our story or the reality, it becomes unacceptable. And we just have to change it. And the moment we determine that this is unacceptable, we need to have another story. Suddenly, God is there. Suddenly, our family is there. Suddenly, we connect to other humans. And we've been connected the whole time, right? But we don't think of being connected because it's just like when we have our different parts of our body that are all connected and we do things with our arms, and yeah, our feet aren't really thinking about that, right? But when as soon as the arm gets hurt, the foot notices. We affect one another, and just like in life, we affect one another. Suddenly, when we put out that idea that, hey, this is unacceptable, this is not life, then all of a sudden we are able to find our connection to others to whom we're connected, find our connection to God, find our connection to hope, find our connection to spirit and to solutions. And all of that kind of came in at once for you, but it wasn't immediate, right? It's
Uh,
you had to just sit with that and say, is this just hope, or do I have something here?
but you know, there is something important in what you say. By the way, everything you're saying is exactly like it happened. So you're really describing the situation because, as I said, when we went to this situation, after 1 year we were put together. So the first time we saw each other after 1 year, this guy came with me in the plane and we were cut the other day. So I didn't have opportunity to talk with them. So I talked with them 1 year after. And one year after, as I said, we begin to know our story, our families, our life, etc. And we decided, okay, let's do something. Because we were six executive, oil and gas executive with more than 30 years each. So there was
Mhm.
180 years of experience there. And we began to put a lot of brains and how we were going to handle the situation because we were putting a very tiny room, by the way. It was a very tiny room, 100 square foot. It was like a closet. But now we're
Yeah.
together. So you say about the connection for us, the connection was inevitable because we were there. So what we really needed to was how to create the condition that we can live with each other, and that's what we did because we created. When we talk about our survival plan, had to do with the eating, with the exercising, with the meditation, with the reading, with the writing, with the having fun because we begin to play domino and with a connection with the spirituality because we begin to read the Bible and pray. So we begin to do all these things respecting the space of the other. We always were trying to respect the space of the other because
Yeah.
we were in the room. The probability to have some friction, it could have become a nightmare. And I'm not gonna say that we say 4 years. In 4 years, I don't know. We could have had a couple of arguments, but we always was saying if somebody has something to say to the other, don't keep quiet. We did like boards and say, hey, we need to talk. And we begin to talk. Hey, I don't like what you're doing this, and you have to correct this. We were very open. We were very open,
Yeah.
and that really helped. The other thing is, if for some reason we saw that somebody was down, because you have those days. If I saw somebody down, everybody came to the other. Hey, my friend, what's going on? What's going on? So we were always trying to help each other. And this is something that today, that's why today I decided to, by the way, in my speech, I put all those elements together because these are tools that really you have to use in your life and in your business. All
Yeah.
those things apply to your life and your business because that's what is life. We are simple human beings.
Hmm.
And this is the other thing that I discovered. When we were in that dungeon, at the beginning, we were isolated, but at some point of the time, because this was something very political, the negotiation between the US and Venezuela to get a release. So when the negotiation began to evolve, they began to relax the situation. So they allow us to talk with the other political prisoners because in that dungeon were more than 400 people. Okay, so I began to meet all these other guys, very high ranked guys, because our political prisoners, there were journalists, there were militaries, there were politicians, so very high ranked people. But we were all in connected. And you know why? Because we were all simple human beings going through the same ordeal. So that makes a great connection because you're talking as people, not there was no rank, there was no title, there was no no, nothing. We're simple human beings going through a situation that we needed to survive, and that's what really at the end connect the people, being connected with the people as people. So that's what creates the connection.
Wow. It, something that occurs to me is that one thing that prison and being detained and what it has the effect of in most people is, or what is supposed to be the reaction is, it's supposed to break us down. And what happens in so many situations that historically is the stories we hear of are those who were not broken down, the ones who connected and cared and were accountable to one another in the prison and were lifted up, rose up from this situation that was supposed to break them down. Everything that is supposed to break you down became your teacher and became your strength to go on to the next day and the next year and the next 2 years. And that is so powerful. There's something that you know the it was a Dr. Marcia said that we were that sometimes we have pain and it's our greatest ministry that rises out of this. So at this point, you have written this book, and this book is telling the story, but it's also a ministry. Can you tell me about that, about your ministry of your book that you has been releasing right now, and the ministry that you see coming out of this book for your life going forward?
Well, for me, my book has a component that is very powerful, because you're saying something very so strong, so powerful, because when you are going through a situation like we were going, because we were in a political prison, and it's a regime that is used to do this type of thing. Remember, please, the people have to take in consideration that Venezuela has learned from the Chinese, from the Russians, from the Iranians, from the Cubans, all these psychological techniques to break you down. So the system is created to break you down. One of the things for me was magical is when at some point we were allowed to have books. It came to me the book of Viktor Frankl, The Man in the Search of a Meaning. When I read that book, and I read that you can find purpose in the suffering, like Dr. Marcia is saying, and we begin to see all the techniques these guys were applying to us were the same technique that the Nazi applied in the concentration camps. Literally, they were doing the same things. Because one of the worst things that was happening, was that they were treating you not as human. They were treating you not human. You were not allowed them to see them in their eyes. And they treated you like if you were an animal. This is something that Viktor Frankl described in his book, and I was going through that situation. So if you decided to don't make that affect you, so there's where comes the power. When they can try to do things to break you, but you become unbreakable because it's your choice to become unbreakable. And that's what we did. Let me tell you, Lydia, that time began to pass, and we were so focused doing what we were doing in our survival plan that we appeared like a hamster in a cage doing things. One day, the director of the prison came to our jail, and he was surprised because he saw that we stayed sometimes months without going out of the jail, because now it's the pandemic and we decided not to go out because we don't want to get affected by the COVID. So we decided to stay in our cell all day long, and we were doing a lot of things all the day. We were all the day busy doing things. One of my colleagues, Jorge, he's a marathon runner. He always has been a marathon runner. By the way, today he is running marathons. He continued doing it. He went to the Boston Marathon. He went to the New York. I believe he's going to the Frankfurt Marathon now. He continued doing marathons. So he began to train us. He began to, because he had that. So we began to have training. I did a lot of training. I was doing push-up and things that I have never done in my life. And one of the other guys did meditations, and so we begin to do a lot of things. When the day that the director of the prison came to our jail, he said, "Hey guys, from what planet you come? Are you Martians?" That guy was thinking we were crazy. Well, he didn't know that the crazy were there, were them, because we were very conscious of what we're doing. We were very focused in doing things. And at the end of the night, after we prayed and we read the Bible, one of my colleagues, Alirio, he always shouted out, how he said, "This is one more day, but one less day too." And then he shouted out, "We're going to come back stronger in body and soul and spirit." And we went and we rested in peace. And we did it every day during years. We did the same routine during years. The day we came back, I remember my daughter always tell me that when we landed here in San Antonio in a military base, and I was the first person that came out from the plane. When I came from the plane, I see in front, and I'm in the tarmac, and I see a hangar. I saw all the family waiting for us. I see all the silhouettes of the family in the distance. And I came with a suitcase. I had a small suitcase that I had it in a corner. That suitcase, I always remember the movie of Tom Hanks did Castaway, where his balloon. My balloon was my suitcase. I had my suitcase in a corner. I
Right.
had that suitcase in a corner. I saw that suitcase every day. He said, "You're gonna come back with me. You're gonna come back," and I came back with that suitcase. When I came back with my suitcase, I was with my suitcase, and my daughter said, "Hey, Dad, I saw you like you were coming from a vacation," because I was smiling. And I told her, "You know what? Because why I was smiling? Because I was thinking, you made it. You made it."
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I have a question here. Purpose in suffering. What was your personal purpose in suffering?
Coming back strong to my family. Coming back strong to my wife and my family. I wanted to come back, not only come back, I wanted to come back in one piece, with my mental health, and not become a burden to my family. I was always thinking in that. So one of the things that I decided to do always is keep my routine. I awake at 6 a.m. in the morning, and I went to sleep 10, 11 p.m. and rested. And I did that routine during all the week, and the Sundays for me was a Sunday. So I treat it like a Sunday. So I try to maintain the routine, because I was already thinking, if I don't do this, the day I come back, I will become a burden to my family. Can you imagine coming back all broken, having all these issues? I'm not saying that I didn't have issues, by the way. I begin to have PTSD events, but I begin to treat myself. Today, I have a therapist that she see me every Thursday, and we became really friends. By the way, I have that LinkedIn audio with her. so, but yeah, my purpose was that, coming back in one piece to my family stronger.
There is that's one way in which we lift ourselves up, is to take on the mental health practitioners, the therapists, the talk about it. And if you don't feel heard, go and find someone else where you're heard. And we lift ourselves up in this way. There is no shame in anything that happens to us. And it is the struggle, the suffering, where we rise up to the it's funny. I every time I run this show, I think this show is from the joyful path. And we talk about things, this is the least joyful sounding path, right, Jose? I mean, this is not what people think of as joy. And we do not need to be happy all the time. We rise to our contentment, we rise to our purpose, we rise to our joy by going through these things and being tested. And no matter what walk of life we come from, right? Whether we're a CEO, whether we have had a beautiful childhood, well supported, whether we've had a terrible childhood, we are all connected. And whatever is wonderful that's going on, there's always somebody else who's suffering. And then lo and behold, we will be suffering again from their suffering. And so we learn and learn and learn and rise up from this suffering. But also the important thing about what Mark was asking was that the suffering is giving us, there's a purpose of this, and it's not just, oh, it happens, but it gives rise to our ministry of hope, of love, of peace, of resiliency. And resiliency is something that I want to have you talk about, because this is one of your main strengths, is resiliency. How does resiliency
You,
play
you,
in people's lives?
for me, it's funny. Um, when I came back, Lydia, I always say this: I came like in a time machine, because picture that you are 5 years in a cave, because I
Yeah.
was in a cave, and then one day they put me in a plane and came back. And when they opened the door of the plane, I was in a world. The first moment I didn't recognize it was the post-pandemic. By the way, it was 2022, so there was going on. I remember an episode that happened to me, like 2 or 3, because I came without no papers. This guy took all my passport, everything. So I had no paper. I remember when we landed in the tarmac, I was with the ambassador that rescued us. His name is Roger Carson. He runs the special presidential office for hostage affair that is attached to the State Department. So he was with me, beside me. And when we landed, I said, Ambassador, how am I gonna do immigration? I don't have no paper. And he said, you he
Those
said,
practical thoughts that just pop up.
and he laughed and said, you're with the U.S. government. Okay, so I did the guy of immigration. Okay, go pass it. And we were in a military installation, by the way. So 2 or 3 days later, they said one of the guys that is of that office that is in charge of all the logistics said, Jose, you're gonna have an appointment to get your driver license. So they drive me to the place, to the driver license, and they gave me a letter signed by Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, where I was officially recognized by the U.S. government as a hostage wrongfully detained. So I have my letter. So they gave
Yeah.
it to me, to all the authorities, everything, because So I go to make my driver license. I'm in the taking my all filling up all the information, and I give the letter to the lady. And the lady reads the letter and begin to see me like who is this guy? and she was like, who is this guy? And and I was beginning to get like anxiety, And I told her, is there is something wrong? And I began to, and that lady saw like I was trying to push her. And you know what that lady did? She went to her manager to say that I was harassing her. And I was like, I didn't do nothing. I was like, but I didn't do nothing. I only said it was something wrong. She understood that I was harassing her. So because after the pandemic, there are a lot of sensitivity in the skin and many people, and I didn't recognize that.
Yeah.
My first month was difficult to understand how situation had changed. I said, this is another world. I didn't recognize it. And that began to give me some triggers. And that's why I was having my therapist, and I'm very open. I didn't hide anything. I was talking with my therapist. Hey, I'm going to these events. I begin to have things. For example, every time I heard a metal sound, it began to because I was thinking in the metal sound when they locked us. So all these
Yeah.
events became back to my mind. So my therapist began to work with me. I'm very open on that. So that doesn't mean that you cannot have things in your life, but you have to recognize and accept them. And the other thing that for me has been wonderful because when I got my connection with my church, with my pastor. By the way, I had the honor that I get in the hand my book to my pastors. They're, so so I understand better the situation we were going through. And today I can say that I'm not happen what happened to me. I'm not happy, but I'm happy about the lessons that I learned from that. Because for me,
Mm-hmm.
the lessons that now I understand better the will of God. I understand better the master plan that God has for you. You understand better your purpose. So for me, it's been like a discovery process. All these situations.
And always we learn. The
Yes.
thing that gets me from what you're saying and what you're relaying is that always we learn, but yet our learning can trick us, and we grow from recognizing the tricks and actually learning the lesson. We will think we're learning, but we start reacting because they're chemicals that happen in our brains. They've been keeping us safe for millennia. They And yet they later on say, oh, I'm being locked up. I'm My abuser is coming. I'm being shot at. I'm being, yeah, and this is very, very real stuff. I'm being braided, and I'm being abused now. And we aren't being abused, but we recognize this. And until we say, this is part of me, and this is what I can rise from and be stronger, until we say that that is our lesson and our teacher, uh, we can be in this place of being traumatized and say, don't trigger me. Don't, like, I love a good trigger personally, because it tells me, I mean, I may cry my eyes out. I may have a really bad day and I'll have to excuse myself because, hey, I'm having a bad day. Don't pay any attention to me. It's just, me reacting. It's just nonsense. It doesn't happen too often because I've worked really hard through my triggers and through my those things, those chemical reactions and those bodily reactions, and I'm supported because of that. still, you'll be triggered sometimes still, I'm sure, Jose. Yeah, I mean, but it gives you a good chance to, it's another lesson. It's a big lesson. It's a supported lesson if we just release to it and surrender to the lesson.
Yeah, that's true. By the way, yeah, triggers you will always have. The good thing is now you can recognize it, and you can know how to handle. For example, sometimes I'm with my wife and we're driving. We're doing several church services, so we are doing it together. And I don't know. She decided that when we're going, she's driving. She doesn't want me to drive because she doesn't like how I drive. So we decided. So I'm the co-pilot and she's the driver. But I don't like also how she drives because she's kind of rude driving. But well, anyhow. But the point is, I, I'm with her, and then I begin to say, hey, slow down here. Hey, don't do this. And she comes to me and says, are you going to tell me how I'm going to drive? If you want, going to stop, I'm going to give you the car. So that sometimes that can get me triggered because I see that, and at the beginning, I can tell you, I went through some situation, but at some point I decided, okay, let's handle this. Let's handle this. So now I recognize that could be an event of trigger that now I handle it. So, that's part of the life.
It is part of life, and but this is what you've just dropped is so much wisdom. The way in which we relate to those we love is with our worst selves sometimes, and our most open and vulnerable selves, and that can lead to some push and shove, and all of our stuff comes up. And so these lessons, it's not just about surviving the death, the plague, the detainment, the abuse, the things. It's also about how, when we've come up after, we relate to those we love, and we therefore can experience love more. It's not, if we again release to that lesson, surrender to what is happening here, and try to not react to it for just a minute or two, and give ourselves grace if we do, because we're human, we react. But to actually try to step back and breathe and realize that everybody has these ways in which, especially when we're vulnerable and open, that we are, based on those assumptions that our brain makes, and it affects our everyday life with our family, our friends, our loved ones. Well, this is a really important thing that you're bringing up.
Yeah, and to tell you the truth, Lydia, when I came back, because when you come back, people think that, happy ending. No, it's not a happy ending. It's a new beginning. And I
Well, I think we just lost Jose, and I'm not sure what just happened. So, Jose, if you're out there, maybe you will come back. All right, we are still live, and we just lost Jose. I don't know if he lost internet or lost power. So we're going to take a moment. I would be happy to entertain any questions. If you have questions, I want to drop them in the chat. So Lisa says, Jose's story is so incredible. It really shows you the power and hope and prayer, no matter what your situation is. I agree, Lisa, and I am so happy to have had him in here, and I'm thinking he may come back. Regardless, if you have anyone who has come up in your life, who is your who has been a mentor, an inspiration from your church, from your community, from your online community, from your work, from your neighborhood, someone who has risen up, whether you know this or not, but is lifting others, please send them my way. I want to have conversations with the people who are, oh, Jose, can you, I just got a message from Jose that kicked him off. So let's see if we can get you in and end this show with you. Let's get you here and get the link back to you, my friend. Unless there was something that you, let's see. Can't go back. It's not letting you go back. That's so strange. Let me get this link. All right, here. Yeah, StreamYard has been trippy. So here, and there is the link. Crowd strikes again. If you can get back in, otherwise I will exit the story. I want to let you all know that in the show notes are all of Jose's links, so you can link to him for his book and on the various social media streams. So I am sorry that we lost you so quickly, Jose. I am going to end the show. But again, if you know somebody who has lifted themselves and is now lifting your spirit, your soul, somebody from your community, please send them my way. I have lots of people to bring to you for the next few months, and we're gonna have a good time. And I would love to talk to you and those who have influenced you as well. As we have these conversations about rising up, we grow. So thank you and many blessings. If you liked this show, please hit like. And if you are in a position to want to come back, please ever so gently push the subscribe button. I appreciate you. And here's Jose. Much love to you, my friend. Much love to all of you. And I will see you. Keep the conversation going. I will see you next week. Ciao.